Pinch pot with coils. You're going to start off by wedging your clay. You need about a handful. Wedging your clay removes the air pockets within the clay. If you have air pockets when you go to fire, your clay can explode in the kiln. After you finish wedging your clay, you need to form your clay into a sphere. To open up your clay, you need to insert your thumb into the clay with your dominant hand. With your non-dominant hand, you support the bottom of the clay. Rotate the clay within the palm of your hand and gently pull up on the clay and squeeze at the same time, keeping the walls even. As you're rotating and pushing the clay upwards, leave a little extra clay at the top. That way, as the pot widens, there's some clay up there to widen with it. If you make it too thin, too fast, it will crack. So I always just say leave it till the end. Eventually, it will thin out and match the rest of your pot. While you're rotating the clay within your hand and pulling the walls up, don't just turn it and squeeze. What you're feeling for are the high points, the areas that have thicker clay. As you press those down and match the rest of your walls, eventually they will all even out. You don't want a really, really thin wall and a really thick wall. Careful not to put your whole hand inside. Keep your forefingers on the outside and just put your thumb on the inside as you rotate. Once it widens a little bit, you can put 2 thumbs. Until then, just use your 1 thumb and focus on pulling your walls up. Now remember, some parts of this video are sped up. Take your time and don't try to match the speed. You can place the pot onto the table and use your thumb to flatten out the bottom. At this point, I can safely put 2 thumbs inside and kind of feel out the walls. I still choose to use 1 thumb for the most part. You really, really want to feel for the thicker parts here. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to rotate the pot and find all of the thicker spots and make sure my walls are even. Now my walls are at a pretty good thickness, but you can see that my rim has kind of thinned out and cracked. I'm just going to give it a little trim. The clay I'm using was a little on the drier side. Before I begin adding coils, I'm just going to use a damp sponge to smooth out some of the edges and the walls. Be sure that your sponge is only damp and not saturated with water. Now I'm going to set my pot aside and go ahead and roll out some coils. When rolling out your coils, you don't want to make them too thick, and you definitely don't want to get them too thin. Get them about a little thicker than the actual pot itself. That way you have some extra clay to blend into the pot. Don't worry about making your coil as round as your pot. You can always make more than one coil and put them together on your pot. It is more difficult, at least for me, to make one really, really long coil, especially once your bowl starts to expand. When attaching two pieces of clay together, you must score and slip. Scoring is where you scratch into the clay, and slip is a clay paste. You use dry clay and mix it with water, and it turns into basically a clay glue. You apply that to both pieces of clay. If your clay is really soft, you only need to apply it to one side. And then you're going to gently lay your coil on top of the rim. I use my thumbs to kind of push down and flatten it out at the same time. Notice that I cut my ends at an angle, and I'm also going to cut my next coil ends at an angle, so that way when I attach the two ends together, I don't get a big bulk of clay there. Now that I've added a coil along the perimeter, I'm going to go ahead and blend it in with the body of my bowl. This is a personal choice. It is perfectly acceptable to leave the coil showing as part of your decoration. You can see as I'm blending it, I am pulling some of the clay that I just added down to the rest of the pot. You can also see right here where I'm pushing the clay from the coil down into the inside of the pot. You can use an old gift card or a plastic rib to help blend out the wall. Make sure your hand is supporting on the inside. This is a good way to not only smooth it out, but also compress your clay, which will make it stronger. All right, now you guys go try.